Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. President of the government, Mr. Plenković, held a meeting with the Executive Vice President for Economy, Valdis Dombrovskis. After the meeting, we have a press conference. First, our Prime Minister will address you, following by the address from Mr. Dombrovskis. Afterwards, we will have also Minister of Finance to answer your questions. Prime Minister, the floor is yours. Thank you, Marko. Good morning, everyone. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome one more time in Zagreb Executive Vice President Valdis Dombrovskis, our good friend and former Prime Minister who had been cooperating with us all these years on our path to the Euro area. I'm glad to have Minister Primorac with us today. We have just had a meeting, part of our usual dialogue, as a part of Executive Vice President's visit to Croatia related to tomorrow's conference, Croatia, 20th member of the Euro area. This was also an opportunity after the meeting in Davos last week and having participated in a panel where we addressed global economic issues. It was a good opportunity to talk about economic situation in Croatia following the introduction of the Euro, our achievements, our challenges ahead. We have reported the Vice President on the economic growth last year. After 2021, when our economic growth was 13.1%, the second largest GDP growth among EU member states. This year, according to all indicators, we expect the 2022 growth to be around 6%, which is also very good and encouraging, given all the challenges that we have had as a result of Russian aggression on Ukraine and its implications on the energy crisis, food crisis, inflationary pressures in Croatia, Europe and around the world. We have also reported, the Vice President, on the inflation rates last year. According to our State Bureau statistics, it is 10.8%, which is lower than in EU member states in Central Europe who are not a part of the Euro area, and also lower than many other EU member states which are in fact in the Euro area. We believe that with our measures and anti-inflationary package, 3.6 billion euro worth in April and through to December, we have been able to help Croatian citizens and businesses, which is appropriate. We targeted namely and firstly vulnerable groups, but also we targeted the retired groups, our farmers, unemployed, war veterans, those receiving assistance. At the same time, the government has taken sure to regulate the price of energy, electricity, gas, oil derivatives, and with the set of measures we have been able to help the economy. We have also discussed the issue we've been facing in the last couple of weeks, in which only one part of companies use the Euro introduction to round off prices to a greater extent than necessary and thus damaging the European citizens. So we have also informed the Vice President on the measures we are taking in order to correct these situations and to not connect the fact that we have introduced Euro with inflationary pressures in our country when we have the highest employment, lowest unemployment, with our investment rating issued by all three credit agencies, and once we have achieved our goals. We've also discussed another important topic, which we have been assisted by Vice President Dombrovskis, and that is the implementation of our National Recovery and Resilience Plan through EU Next Generation Facility. We have also talked about the activities that Croatia has taken so far. Out of 5.5 billion euro, we have received 2.2 billion, which is 40%. So far, we have met all the criteria in 100% or under 100% criteria. We have continued doing so, and we believe that in agreement with the Commission and with recommendations from our Minister Filipovic, who is here, we will be able to use the rest of the funds that we have available, which is 3.6 billion euro of very favorable loans. Croatian government also takes care of broader activities on the European level, economic governance, solutions to energy crisis, global economic movements. So I can say that we were positively surprised by the atmosphere in Davos last week, where we heard optimistic tones, and when we discussed measures to be implemented not only by executive institutions but also European Central Bank with the aim of reducing the inflation rate. I would like to thank again Vice President Dombrovskis for his support that he has extended continuously in the past several years. We will try to make sure that Croatian energy transition moves towards renewable energy, and that this period of energy crisis is used in the best possible way, and to make sure that fossil fuels can be afforded by the Croatian citizens and businesses. So this is the summary of our talks today. I look forward to the conference tomorrow. I'm always happy when we have Executive Vice President of the Commission here with us. Vice President Dombrovskis, the floor is yours.
Honourable Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Minister, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to congratulate Croatian authorities and people on the remarkable success of joining both Euro area and Schengen as of January 1st this year. This has been achieved within the first 10 years of Croatia's EU membership. It has been a remarkable journey which required lots of hard work and commitment, and we have been working intensively throughout the last years as regards Croatia's Euro accession to make it happen. It must be said that the preparatory works were done in a very thorough way, with a strong cooperation between institutions and with EU institutions, and all in all the Euro changeover is made according to the plan. But we are aware of concerns related to price increases, especially in services sector, and the government is working to address those concerns. We see that Croatian authorities have put in place credible measures to minimize the risk of unjustified price increases. Dual display of prices in both kuna and euro as of September was important to increase transparency. The voluntary code of ethics for businesses is another one, and finally authorities are conducting inspections and can impose fines on businesses which carry out unjustifiable price increases. It's worth noting that this Euro changeover is taking place in a context of high inflation, not only in Croatia but in Eurozone generally and more broadly globally. So it's also important support measures which Croatian authorities have taken to support households and businesses in view of high energy prices. Another topic which we were discussing today concerns Croatia's Recovery and Resilience Facility, where one can say things are broadly on track, and as Prime Minister already mentioned, Croatia has already received 40% of its grants allocation and currently is working towards a third payment request. And in parallel is working on the Repower EU chapter for Croatia's Recovery and Resilience Plan. As you know, The Repower EU program is providing additional grants to member states to help address challenges related to Russia's aggression to Ukraine and to move away from our dependency from Russian fossil fuel supplies. So it's important that those Repower EU chapters are prepared and put in effect as soon as possible. If we look at the broader energy supply picture in the EU, one can say that this winter we are going through successfully. The gas storages were full ahead of the winter. And also the fact that winter so far has been relatively mild is helping, so we have sufficient supplies, but we will also need to do preparations for the next winter, because this year there are still substantial amounts of Russian natural gas in our gas storages, which was pumped predominantly in the first half of the last year. This is not going to be the case next year. So it will require additional, yet substantial additional supplies and alternative supply routes. And from that point of view, also the Croatian LNG terminal in Krk will play its role. So, and as Prime Minister mentioned, we also discussed broader economic and policy developments in the EU and in the world, including, for example, EU's response to the US Inflation Reduction Act, where the European Commission intends to come forward with the proposals on 1st of February to feed for the discussion of the European Council a week later. Thank you.
Prime Minister will leave you now, and now we will give the floor to Prime Minister Primorac. Good morning, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome warmly Executive Vice President Dombrovskis. Thank you for coming to Croatia, and thank you for having such an excellent constructive meeting today. It was a relaxed atmosphere, and we have discussed a number of topics. It must be emphasized that today's meeting is an introduction to the conference that is to take place tomorrow at a high level. This conference, in a symbolic way, will be closing of one chapter on the path of Croatia to the EU. We will also, at the same time, open the new chapter where Croatia will be a member and has become a member of the euro area. I would also like to take this opportunity to say that this is a tremendous success achieved by the government of Croatia, which has proved its determination to meet the strategic goals, euro area and the Schengen area. I would like to thank all stakeholders who have in any way directly or indirectly helped the Republic of Croatia on its path. I would also like to thank my colleagues at the Ministry of Finance, as well as the colleagues from other ministries who have been actively taking part in coordination committees. I would also like to thank our friends and partners, primarily Executive Vice President Dombrovskis and his entire team, and also I would like to thank Commissioner Gentiloni and his team. Without such excellent cooperation and help from their part, the path of Croatia towards the European area would have been much more difficult. So thank you once again for all the effort you have invested. As for the topics that we've discussed today, let me emphasize two. Firstly, of course, conversion and adoption of the euro in Croatia. We said that all processes were seamless. We also discussed reforms, the path itself, consolidating public finances, and all the elements and the goals Croatia was supposed to meet in order to join this important club. We also discussed the question of, or the issue of unjustifiable increase of prices. We concluded that this simply happened in certain circumstances. We also informed the Executive Executive Vice President Dombrovskis about the tools and mechanisms that our government has been using to be firstly a preventive factor and then corrective one as well. Some companies have used the situation of switching to euro to increase their prices without grounds, without justification, and I'm sure we will use everything we have available to prevent or to stop this from happening again, and to make sure that all those who have increased prices in fact lower them to the pre-euro adoption period. We've also discussed the package of assistance, rescue package to Croatia, our citizens and companies in fighting the inflationary pressures and increasing the energy prices. We have reported the Vice President that the measures that we introduced in Q4 last year in fact matched the Commission's suggestion on what these measures were supposed to be like, especially when we talk about the most vulnerable.
A to je bilo prisutno u okviru cijena električne energije.
Are talking about the price of energy sources, where we had two tariff model in which prices are subsidized up to a certain level, which represents an average consumption, and everything above was charged based on increased tariff. One more time, Vice President Dombrovskis, thank you so much for coming. We look forward to the conference tomorrow, when we will have another opportunity to reflect on our Euro path and to emphasize all the milestones. I would also, I'm sure we will hear all the advantages that we are already experiencing of being EU area member. We have time for a few questions. Vice President Dombrovskis, today you mentioned government's measures. Can you clarify your previous statement of December that EU member states' measures in 70% of cases were not well targeted? This is your statement from December.
Indeed. One of the issues which we are dealing in a context of high energy prices is how to respond in a way that fiscal policy and monetary policy are not contradicting each other. We're currently in high inflation environment, so European Central Bank is tightening its monetary policy to counter inflation, so it's important that fiscal policy is not contradicting this. And therefore we are not recommending an overall fiscal stimulus this year. Rather, we are recommending overall neutral fiscal stance. And one of the ways to achieve it is through better targeting of energy support measures, where indeed we did the assessment of the measures conducted by member states so far, and indeed 70% of those measures appear not to be targeted. And we have been discussing this issue several times in Eurogroup, in ECOFIN, how to ensure better targeting of those measures. And one of the proposals which European Commission put forward as a Euro area recommendation is this two-tier pricing system that up to certain level of consumption, consumers receive subsidized prices, and above that level of consumption, market prices. So if properly calibrated, it can really help to target those measures to those who are more in need, and also encourage energy savings and maintain the price signal of energy prices. And actually, the measures which Croatian authorities have implemented in their energy support package, I would say, are quite close to this two-tier pricing model which we had been recommending.
Pa evo ja mogu reći nekoliko riječi u tom smislu.
allow me to add,
we have continuously emphasized that measures have to encompass those who are most vulnerable. So our measures aimed at the income side were focused on our retired group, citizens who received child allowance, etc. As for subsidizing energy prices, it was necessary to act quickly, given that energy prices and resources prices could generate additional inflationary pressure. So we decided to curb the price. But not indefinitely, of course. There is a certain level, which is, as we said, the average level of consumption, which is subsidized, and then everything above is subject to increased tariff. I would say this is a textbook example on how to deal with this problem. This has been adopted by a number of countries around the world. So when we talk about support in energy sector and countries which have support and want to remove it, so it is continuously emphasized that this has to be phased out in terms of removing support in phases and gradually, and at the same time measures that are implemented have to be motivating for those who use, for instance, electricity, so that the consumers have the motive to reduce it to the average level. In addition, if electricity or any other energy is subsidized limitlessly, our research has shown that the majority of helpers or subsidies go to those with highest income, highest earners. So I think it was around 13% of households in Croatia have consumed 50% of total electricity. In other words, if we subsidize everything, everyone, it would mean that 50% of subsidies would go towards 13% of users, consumers who are highest earners, and probably because they have the greatest number of appliances that use electricity. So several weeks after we had structured our measures, we received information from the Commission that our measures were in line with what had to be done.
Dobar dan, pitanje za gospodina Dombrovskisa. S obzirom na to da ste na sastanku razgovarali o neopravdanom povećanju cijena uvođenja eura, kako je vaše stajalište o tome, kakva su iskustva u eurozoni kada govorimo o tom pitanju, pitaću i vas s obzirom da dolazite iz Latvije, kako ste vi to tamo riješili, ako ste imali takav problem?
It must be said that previous rounds of euro enlargement, including introduction of euro in Latvia in 2014, were done in a context of very low inflation. Inflation in those years were consistently below the ECB target, which at that time was inflation close to but below 2%. So we were not really experiencing this problem in Latvia, and in 2014, after the euro changeover, inflation in Latvia was below 1%, which is, I would say, in line with the general tendencies in Eurozone at that time. Currently, inflation the context is quite different, with inflation in Eurozone being around 10%, and one can say that the tendencies that we see with inflation in Croatia are more or less in line what we see in Eurozone. And all in all, inflation in Eurozone, in Croatia, is lower than in Central Eastern European countries which have not introduced euro. This is, I think, another factor to keep in mind when doing different comparisons. So overall context of euro introduction right now is very different, and in a high inflation environment, of course, it's more difficult to disentangle exact reasons why these or those businesses are raising prices, and that's why authorities are conducting those inspections, doing this assessment whether those price increases were justified or not, and imposing fines in case they are not justified.
Posljednje pitanje za kolegu Gološa. Dobar dan, pitanje za ministra, ali potpredsjednik komisije slobodno može dati neki svoj savjet.
Question for the minister, but also for Mr. Dombrovskis, if you have any advice.
Na sastanku možda razgovarali
so, inflation
da u borbi protiv inflacije Europska središnja banka
European
podiže
Central
kamatne
Bank
stope.
increases interest rates to fight
Postoji li nekakva
inflation?
projekcija i
Is there a
upozorenje iz
projection
Europske
or
komisije
warning from the
do koje
European
granice bi
Commission
to
up to
moglo
which
ići i
level
kako vi
this
kao
can
ministar
go?
vidite
And as a minister,
tih podizanja kamatnih
what
stopa
can be the consequences of increasing interest rates, consequences for citizens, and how that can affect the sale of real estate, which has never been more expensive, and also with regard to liquidity. The situation is highly complex. It seems complex, but in fact it is simple. Monetary policy or monetary tightening is one of the most efficient tools to fight inflation. The Ministry of Finance and the government of Croatia has communicated a lot about this. We have talked about how to ensure the inflation goes down, and we have emphasized that the fiscal policy measures are such that they cannot curb inflation totally, but they can make sure that fiscal policy is not counter to what we have been doing. This is our frequent topic in our Eurogroup and ECOFIN, and we emphasize the importance to coordinate the fiscal policies and also coordinate fiscal and monetary policies. So the European Central Bank has recognized this problem and is continuously, periodically increasing interest rates.
Ono što sam ja uspio primijetiti, dakle, a svi se možemo sa time složiti, da takva politika doista djeluje protuinflatorno, prati se naravno situacija i ukoliko se pokaže da se ovakvim monetarnim zaoštravanjem kakve je trenutno u tijeku ne ostvaruju dovoljno brzom dinamikom i u dovoljnoj mjeri zacrtani ciljevi, ja mogu očekivati da će i dalje doći, odnosno dolaziti do porasta kamatnih stopa. Te kamatne stope će se naravno preljevati postupno i na kamatne stope u gospodarstvu i to je nešto na što smo također upozoravali. Ja sam dakle nakon što sam stupio na dužnost ministra financija već sredinom srpnja upozoravao upravo na ove probleme i isticao kako je jedini učinkoviti instrument u borbi protiv inflacije postupno povećavanje kamatnih stopa i apelirao de facto tada već na građane i poduzetnike da u što većoj mjeri fiksiraju svoje obaveze ukoliko imaju ugovorene dakle kredite po varijabilnoj kamatnoj stopi. Naravno da sada dolazi to i do izražaja i evo, još jednom možemo samo apelirati na građane i na sve ostale dionike da budu oprezni prilikom novih zaduživanja, da u što većoj mjeri koriste fiksnu kamatnu stopu, vrijeme je nepredvidivo i naravno da svi zajedno uložimo napore kako bi ostvarili taj cilj, a to je smanjenje stope inflacije. U tom kontekstu smo razgovarali sa gospodinom izvršnim potpredsjednikom Dombrovskisom i isticali smo naravno i pitanje prelaska na euro i u tom kontekstu povećanja cijena, bitno je naglasiti da to bude vrlo jasno kako se mi ovim zaključkom vlade koji je nedavno donešen praktički ne borimo protiv inflacije. Dakle, borimo se protiv neopravdanog povećanja cijena. Dakle, nemamo ideju o tome kako ćemo sa tim zaključkom zaustaviti inflaciju u Hrvatskoj. Inflacija je prisutna i u drugim državama i izvršni potpredsjednik Dombrovskis je to također istaknuo. Dakle, u baltičkim državama je ta inflacija i preko 20%, tako da ne možemo cjelokupan taj inflatorni pritisak pripisati uvođenju eura. To ne bi bilo odgovorno i ne bi bilo racionalno, ali u onim situacijama u kojima je neko koristio situaciju da neopravdano povećava te cijene, to je nešto što ćemo pokušati naravno ne samo sankcionirati, nego ja bih rekao više preventivno, a onda tek i korektivno djelovati da se te cijene vrate na početne razine. Ono što bih svakako još istaknuo, mislim da je i inicijativa Ministarstva gospodarstva u kontekstu kreiranja bijelih lista nešto što treba pozdraviti, dakle
white lists should be welcome. So we are not talking about creating blacklists and accusing. This is a better solution, having white lists. And I'm surprised that retailers do not want to join in our initiative. Everyone keeps saying that market mechanisms should be preserved. They expect Adam Smith's invisible hand to work its wonders and to work both on supply and demand. However, if there is an asymmetry in information, where buyers are not informed on the levels of prices, then market mechanisms should assume that prior to going out in the morning, consumers should visit all retail places, all shops, and then compare different prices, which of course does not make sense. So our initiative deals with the problem of asymmetric information. We put all prices in one place and we enable consumers to use this information, to use Adam Smith's invisible hand, and to be fully informed. In other words, consumers know how much products cost and where. Thank you.
Just to add a couple of words on the overall macroeconomic policy mix. Well, it's clear that in a context of high inflation, European Central Bank is raising interest rates and tightening monetary policy. I would say it's a standard monetary policy response in situations like this. Of course, we cannot tell in a sense how much the interest rates will increase, because it's also going to be a data-driven process, also seeing how inflation is actually going down. Well, there are some indications that inflation may have peaked in December last year, but of course we'll have to monitor closely those developments. Another important point which I already mentioned, that in this situation it's important to have a consistent macroeconomic policy mix where fiscal policy is not contradicting monetary policy. That's why we are not recommending fiscal stimulus right now, because that would only fuel further inflation and force ECB to even higher interest rate increases. To use this analogy, like in a car, you are not pressing the gas pedal and brakes at the same time, and similarly we should not do at the macroeconomic policy. Thank you.
Zahvaljujem, ovime ćemo zaključiti konferenciju za medije. Hvala svima na dolasku.
Hvala lijepo.
Thank you.